All right, now let's take a look at the count up demo. So this is a demo created using the mini MVCS architecture for Unity. You can check out the Udemy course if you want to see all of the teachings about how and why architecture in Unity is challenging and why the mini MVCS is a great community-driven solution. Then also the framework itself is freely available, so you can check out the link and you can just play with the source code if you want. So this is built on the MVC architecture concepts. There's a Udemy course which goes over the following content. The course introduction, I talk about Unity, I talk about software design, and the mini MVCS framework for Unity. Then deeper, more information about each of those topics here. You can see that there are sample projects included, but today we're going to go over some more demos. In particular, we're going to look at the count up demo. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here I am in the mini MVCS project. When you download and install that, you can go here and click samples. So mini MVCS and then samples, and import those samples. I've already done that here. So we can look at more and let's look at count up. So I will start by running the demo. So here on the screen, it's a little small. Let's see if we can go like that. There we go. It's a little bit bigger. So this is meant to be the simplest demo included in the course. So we have some view here that says text count up, mini example. And then there's a counter button that shows number 23. I think I start at a non-zero value just because I load from a service. Then we can click here, and if I click anywhere on the screen, it goes up as I click it. Let's stop and start the scene again. It always starts at 23, and then we'll click up. So we'll look in the code, why does it start at 23? So that's it. Taking a click, showing it on the screen. Now, you don't necessarily need a complex architecture for this example. You could probably get away with one mono behavior then and make this whole example work. But it's meant to be an easy way to onboard and understand the fundamentals. And then imagine bringing them to a game like Fortnite, right? That's much more complex, and you'd want to learn these basics here. So let's take a look at how the scene is set up. So we've got a world game object that just has the camera and the directional light. Nothing interesting happening there. Then we have a Unity UI canvas here with our title text and our status text here. Let's zoom in on those a little bit. There we go. There we are. Then we have the mini example itself. So this is the mono behavior that kicks off the demo. It creates the mini itself, and it brings in the view and the controller concept. So let's take a look at it. Let's open up that source code here. Just make sure we have. And unlike earlier demos, I'll make sure that I'm not covering up the interesting code here. There we go. So here we are at the top. This is the mini example that's kicking everything off. I take in a serialized field of the view. So let's look here. We have a serialized field of the view, and we drag in the view just like this, and then it's in there. Back to the code. All I do is create the count up mini, which you could think of as the app itself. This is the most parent structure here, and I pass in the view, right? So anytime we want to have a view in the scene, we usually do this pattern. Serialize it, pass it in this way. Then let's take a look at the count up mini code. All right. So the count up mini is going to extend the mini MVCS, which is going to have these parts in it. It's going to have a context, which is the communication between the four tiers. It has the model, which is the data storage. It has the view, which is what renders to the user UI and what takes input back from the user. The controller, which is going to handle any business logic, the meat and potatoes, the bulk of your code would probably be in the controller. And then the service. Service is optional, and it's only needed if you want to call any external data. Loading a file from your local machine, calling an online backend service, for example. Down here in the constructor, I just take the view and store it. Then in the initialization, I create a new context. Context, again, is just a low-level object that's required part of this. Then I build the model, the service, and the controller. Now, as quite common in these examples, the controller will take the other 3 tiers inside, and it's really the controller that does most of the work. So what we're looking at here is the mini, but the mini just really prepares and feeds the controller, and the controller is going to do most of the work. Now, a common question is, well, do you always have exactly one model, view, and service controller in your project? And you could have many, many more. So imagine this mini here setting up the player model, player service, player controller, and that working on its own, and then having the metagame model, metagame service, and metagame controller. Metagame is often where you have your game services connecting things to the backend, allowing the user to store their progress, connect with friends, all those social features, being able to share things that way. So you can have each of those areas of your project be separate minis or separate controllers. So then you see that they all get initialized here. So now let's just step through and look at each of these 3. So in the model, remember all we're doing here is clicking the screen and seeing a number count up, 23, 24, 25. So we just need to store this int. You could store them as a simple int. I use something in all of my demos called the observable int, which is an int that also dispatches an event anytime it changes. Very useful for data binding. In here, all I do is set the value to 0. Now remember when we run the demo, it starts at the value of 23. So we still haven't seen why it starts at 23, because here it looks like it's going to start at 0. So then let's look at the service. The service is going to inherit from base service, which is optional. Anytime you extend from the base classes, it is optional. But what we want to do here is use the base service because this is going to kick off some interesting stuff for us. Very lightweight, but it's convenient. Then down here, we store a value, and it's here that we get that value 23. So we're going to load a local text file, and then whatever the value is that we load from that local text file, we're going to dispatch it to the model. And if I was to go look at this text file, let's go do that right now. Resources, text, count up text. We can see it starts at 22. So I was saying 23 before, but it starts at 22. So that's why it starts at 22 if we tweak this value. Now, this is a silly example. Why would your data model, why not just hard code the value in C#? You certainly could. But here I wanted to show an example of what a service is. A service loads any external data from local files or from backend services. So that's it there. That's the service. Now let's look at the controller. This is the most complex part. So the controller is going to extend from base controller. As the comment said, extending from base is always optional. We do it here again because there's a little bit of common boilerplate code that's done for you. Then the controller here in the initialize is going to set the UI text. Then it's going to load that service that we just looked at. Then when the service gets loaded, it's going to set the model counter value to whatever the service just loaded. So the service goes and gets the value 22. It passes it to the model, and now the model has that value as its initial one. That's why it starts at 22 and not at 0. Then we listen for any time anywhere on the screen is clicked. And if the screen is clicked, let's go down here, it just increments the model by 1. And that's really it. So let's run the demo one more time. So it's still, I guess somewhere I'm adding, oh wait, actually when I clicked on the screen exactly, just to load the scene up here. That's why it's loading one more. So it loads 22, I click the screen, it shows 23, and that's the demo. That's it for this demo.